In September 2017, the police were alerted to a strange smell and smoke rising from the backyard of a house in a London suburb. When officers arrived, they discovered charred human remains in a slow cooker. They were the mortal remains of Sophie Lyonnais, who had come to London to work as a nanny for an English family. The police were shocked to learn how that family had treated their children's caregiver. Sophie Lyonnais, a young woman with a difficult fate, was always reserved and modest. She often avoided large gatherings and disliked talking much. For this reason, Sophie had few friends, and communication with her family was often strained. Her mother, both fearful and hopeful, frequently tried to start a conversation, asking how her daughter's day had gone. Sophie's answers, however, were always brief and sometimes reduced to a single word. That made her appear still more withdrawn. Her tendency to isolate herself had roots in childhood. Her parents' divorce in 1996, when she was still very young, left a deep mark. She no longer had a full household. Her mother remarried after the divorce, and Sophie now had a younger brother and an older half-sister. They lived in the countryside east of Paris. These family circumstances contributed to her social difficulties. There were moments, though, when Sophie opened up, speaking about her interests and feelings, even if such moments were rare. She was especially sociable with children and loved being around them. She always connected easily with kids. Nothing made her happier. That was her favorite activity. After finishing secondary school, she began studying early childhood education, hoping to build a career in that field. Yet work proved hard to find. Sophie could not secure a suitable position with children, which was a great disappointment. While she kept searching for the job of her dreams, she took a cashier post in a supermarket to support her family financially. She viewed that work as temporary while she continued looking for something better with children. Just as she was losing hope, a notice appeared that seemed perfect. A friend told her about a family in London, Sabrina Kouida and Wissem Medouni, who were seeking a French-speaking nanny for their two children, a 6-year-old boy and a 3-year-old girl. It was the opportunity Sophie had long awaited. Sophie's mother first opposed her move to London, fearing it was dangerous to go so far, to a foreign country and unknown people. But Sophie persisted, and at last her parents agreed to let her go. In January 2016, at 20 years of age, Sophie arrived in London and began a new chapter. There she met Sabrina and Wissem, a married couple who needed help with their children. Sabrina worked in fashion and was a well-known makeup artist, whereas Wissem was a financial analyst at a bank. They wanted a nanny, ideal for Sophie, who wished to improve her English and work with kids. When Sabrina and Wissem started the nanny search, he had already left the bank. He had invested his savings in buying 2 apartments to rent out. The family lived in an affluent London neighborhood and was financially comfortable. Their neighbors noted Sophie's exceptional dedication to her work. They observed she hardly had a social life, unlike other nannies who often met up in their free time or took excursion days with children. Sophie was always busy and had little time to socialize. Through her first months in London and all of 2016, she felt happy and fulfilled in the household. She felt part of the family and experienced joy in her duties. But in May 2017, everything changed dramatically. Sophie wrote to her mother expressing dissatisfaction with her working conditions. She reported having been accused of theft, her pay cut, her vacation opportunities restricted, and her freedom limited. It was a dramatic swing from a wonderful life to serious problems. Sophie's mother then bought a plane ticket for her to return to France. Yet Sophie never used the ticket, and her plans to go back never materialized. In the last months before September 2017, Sophie Lyonnais became less sociable. Previously, she had kept active contact with her family, sending postcards, letters, emails. But her messages arrived less and less often, worrying her parents. This behavioral change contrasted sharply with her earlier activity and alarmed relatives and friends. On Wednesday, the 20th of September 2017, a barbecue was being prepared in the rear garden of Sabrina and Wissam's house, where Sophie worked. A conspicuous problem arose because of an unusual smell and excessive smoke from the garden. Some neighbors concerned knocked to learn what was happening. Wissam, home alone, explained he was cooking chicken and lamb and there was no need for concern. He often produced much smoke when barbecuing because he lacked experience. One neighbor nonetheless found the explanation suspicious and called the fire service, fearing the blaze could spread to nearby houses or that the smoke might be toxic. When firefighters arrived, they questioned Wissam. They found it odd that so much smoke came from grilling chicken and lamb. Inspecting the grill, they uncovered suspicious remains. One photo showed roast chicken. On closer look, however, they saw human fingers and what appeared to be a nose. They called the police. Wissam was arrested and taken to the station. As he was moved, a large contingent of law enforcement officers arrived, blocking the street and alarming residents. Police retrieved from the garden a shape like a human silhouette covered with a tarpaulin. A few days later, it was identified as Sophie Lyonnais, age 21. During the inquiry, both Wissam and Sabrina were detained. Investigators learned that for months, Sophie had been living in deplorable conditions in the couple's home. An autopsy sought to determine Sophie's cause of death and the exact timing. From the outset, crime was suspected, and the evidence confirmed it. Establishing the precise cause of death proved impossible because the remains were badly damaged by fire, and the exact moment was unclear. The case thus posed a complex mystery. 2 days after the discovery, autopsy results led to charges against Sabrina and her husband Wissam for Sophie Lyonnais' death. Evidence indicated both were involved. The court now had to uncover all circumstances to proceed to trial and secure justice for Sophie. The trial revealed details of Sophie's last months in London. Special attention fell on Sabrina's background. Like Sophie, Sabrina had begun as a nanny. She later took up makeup artistry, worked with stars, met many celebrities, and eventually made a name in fashion. During her career, she met Mark Walton, then a member of a popular boy band. Their relationship developed quickly and the couple soon had a child. That child became the first youngster in Sophie's care. By 2013, the relationship between Sabrina and Mark ended. Mark told her he did not wish to continue. The breakup affected Sabrina deeply, altering her personality. Those who had known her earlier noticed unstable behavior, strange fits of anger, and senseless aggression. During that period, Sabrina grew obsessively interested in Mark, tracking his schedule, phoning him repeatedly, trying to stay in touch, but Mark rejected her. Meanwhile, Sabrina began a relationship with Wissam, an old acquaintance. A few months into the romance, Sabrina became pregnant. She moved in with Wissam and they had a daughter. That marked a new phase, also affecting Sophie, who now nannied the newborn. When the girl grew older, Sabrina and Wissam decided they needed help, prompting the search that brought Sophie. At first glance, Sabrina and Wissam seemed the perfect couple, yet their life hid deep problems. Wissam, a bank financial analyst, chose to resign because Sabrina wanted them to spend more time together, arguing his job consumed hours that could go to family. His departure, however, created unforeseen money troubles. The drop in income meant Sabrina could not sustain the lavish lifestyle she desired: social events, expensive outfits. Though her husband owned extra properties and savings, and though Sabrina earned enough for comfort, her wants went unmet, breeding new strains. Moreover, Sabrina remained preoccupied with her ex, Mark Walton, for many years. She went so far as to accuse him of child exploitation and abuse, painting him negatively, yet those claims had no basis and were deemed false. When Sabrina learned that Mark planned to leave London in 2017 for the United States, she was shocked and enraged. She lost the chance to shadow him as she had for years. The transatlantic distance made her prior stalking and calls impossible, leaving her unable to track him. In response to that impotence, Sabrina began venting her anger on Sophie. At first, she accused the young woman of petty theft, incomplete tasks, poorly cooked meals, tardiness in readying the children for school, any pretext to scold and shout. The situation soon worsened as Sabrina's verbal assaults turned into physical violence. It emerged that not only she, but also Wissem had repeatedly used force against Sophie. These actions caused Sophie severe suffering and harmed her overall state. The court presented shocking proof. Recordings on Sabrina's and Wissem's mobile devices were key. One could clearly hear them humiliating Sophie verbally and abusing her physically. Both resorted regularly to violence, leaving deep physical and emotional wounds. Alongside the audio, investigators found photographs on the family's computers and phones showing Sophie's gradual change. The once slender girl had become markedly thinner and gaunt. In the last photo shown, Sophie looked exceptionally emaciated, revealing her deteriorated physical and mental state. Verbal attacks became physical, worsening matters. Sophie also endured food deprivation. Hygiene was forbidden, and even her salary was cut. Witnesses who saw her in the final months noted she wore the same clothes, appeared unkempt, and failed to meet basic hygienic standards. This resulted from Sabrina and Wissem virtually denying her any normal life. Sophie's free time was cut to the minimum. She was practically confined, leaving only for child-related errands and shopping. Afterward, she was fully isolated from the outside world. Sabrina even forbade her to contact family, heightening her loneliness and pain. When Sophie's mother saw a photo of her daughter after so many months, she could not help thinking Sophie resembled people who had survived the horrors of concentration camps. Sophie had endured incredible trials, yet stayed silent out of fear. According to her mother, Sabrina repeatedly threatened Sophie, promising to send her to prison, harm her parents, and more. Sabrina even claimed Sophie had a secret relationship with Mark Walton. She alleged Sophie let Mark into the house when others were absent. Sabrina was so fixated on hurting her ex that she forced Sophie to write a letter confessing a secret liaison with Mark, stating he promised Sophie film and TV roles in exchange for intimacy. But the tale was impossible. Mark Walton did not even know Sophie existed and had moved from London only months after her arrival, making Sabrina's accusations absurd. Investigators could not pinpoint exactly when Sophie died, but trial findings narrowed the window. The prosecution believed the tragedy occurred on the night of the 19th of September. On the 20th of September, when the body was found, CCTV footage showed Wissem taking the children to school in the morning, and later Sabrina bringing them to a playground, seemingly delaying their return home. Cameras also captured Wissem going into a grocery store, a task formerly handled by Sophie. These details led prosecutors to conclude that by then Sophie was already dead. Facts of the case suggested possible premeditated murder. Sabrina exchanged messages with a friend who asked whether Sophie had acquaintances interested in nannying, cooking, cleaning, and spending time with her daughter. Sabrina replied Sophie no longer worked there, and her words hinted at an unpleasant end to their collaboration. That exchange occurred on the 15th of September, 5 days before Wissem's arrest. In their statements, they blamed each other, adding further mystery. Sabrina offered her version of the night of the 19th of September. She had gone to sleep after Wissem and Sophie argued. He was unhappy with how dinner was prepared. Sabrina said she heard nothing more until waking in the night to strange noises from the bathroom, where she claimed she found Wissam drowning Sophie. By the time she entered, Sophie was near death, and Sabrina was afraid to help. Wissam, for his part, presented another version, accusing Sabrina of starting the fight and attempting to drown Sophie. Thus, each told a similar story while blaming the other. During the investigation, a major twist occurred. The eldest child in the house, the son of Sabrina and Mark Walton, testified. He recounted hearing his parents arguing with Sophie that night. Then he said, Sabrina and Wissam led Sophie to the bathroom where he heard the young woman screaming for help. This testimony allowed investigators to establish that Sophie's murder occurred on the 19th of September, implicating both adults. As noted earlier, though neither may have planned it, Sabrina had contemplated such an outcome, even telling friends beforehand that Sophie no longer worked there. After a painstaking review of all testimony, audio recordings and the timeline, the case went to the jury. After 30 minutes of deliberation, they delivered their verdict. Sabrina Quida and Wissam Medouni were found guilty of murdering Sophie Lyonnais and sentenced to 30 years in prison. The case drew wide attention, especially after Sabrina wrote a farewell letter in Sophie's name, expressing hope that Sophie would find peace in a better world. Friends, relatives, and acquaintances of Sophie regarded this act as mockery and a complete lack of remorse. As for the two children, information about who assumed their guardianship was not disclosed, or at least no data could be found, likely a deliberate choice to shield the minors from excessive public scrutiny. In any event, we all hope they are now in safe and loving hands, surrounded by care and support, especially considering they repeatedly witnessed abuse by their mother and stepfather. That is a harsh ordeal for any child, and we sincerely wish them tranquility and happiness.